Let's talk to Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. Mel, Matthew Said says that people are going to listen to you if you come up with some decent fiscal promises. Morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw that. Good morning. You saw that at our conference, Mike, where in my speech I set out £47 billion worth of savings. That's getting government spending under control. It's the first down payment on that, particularly around welfare spending, £23 billion worth of savings there. We made it very clear that those savings will be subject to what we're calling our golden rule, which means at least half of those savings have to go to paying down the debt so that we're living within our means, but equally it allows us to cut taxes, and that's why we were able to cut stamp duty or offer a cut on abolishing stamp duty on properties, abolishing business rates on shops and pubs in our high streets. That's 250,000 businesses, and a big bold offer for young people around lower taxes for that first job. So that's what, you know, serious economic policy looks like in terms of moving our country forward from this kind of debt trap we're in into a more dynamic, growing economy.
Well, we've got GDP figures this morning growing 0.1% in the 3 months to August. Somebody pointed out to me that it flatlined pretty much in July. No doubt later on today Rachel Reeves will claim this is some kind of great sign that everything's going well. But in fact, you know, given inflation is going to be rising to something like 3.4%, and the IMF is saying that we're going to have the highest inflation rate in the G7, a small amount of growth like that really doesn't mean anything, does it?
No, absolutely not. And in fact, 0.1% growth in August. It was a 0.1% contraction the month before. And the IMF is saying that in terms of growth per capita, per person, which is the thing that matters when it comes to how well people feel off, they're saying that next year we will have the slowest growth in the G7, and will be below average growth this year. And you're absolutely right about inflation. We have the highest inflation now in the G7. The projections are that that'll be the same case next year, and that's one of the reasons why people are getting poorer. What the government's got to do, Mike, is not be looking to put up taxes in the November budget. They've got to look, as we are suggesting, at controlling spending so that actually we can start to get taxes down and get the economy growing.
Can we talk about this China story? Because it seems to me that Keir Starmer was being, at the very least, economical with the truth yesterday when he talked about a meeting. Let's have a look at this. This is him at PMQs talking about a meeting that took place earlier this year, but nothing happened at it.
There was a meeting in September. That did not involve the National Security Advisor discussing the evidence in any way, nor, Mr. Speaker, one further piece of evidence. The final statement in this case was submitted in August 2025. There was no further submission of evidence, one way or the other, after any discussion in September. This is a red herring, a completely scurrilous allegation made by the Leader of the Opposition.
He thinks it's a scurrilous allegation that basically somehow this government has been complicit in allowing spying to go on inside Parliament by two characters who were engaged by the Chinese government to give information to what can only be described as an enemy state. So, you know, what does he mean, a scurrilous allegation?
Well, I think that's all part of the attempt to cover up what has probably been going on, which is that there was a very clear case and two individuals were charged with spying on our members of Parliament in our Parliament, a clear threat to our national security. Those charges were brought forward when we were in office, and the case collapsed. And you have to ask the question, why did it collapse? Well, it either collapsed because the government wasn't sufficiently engaged in this matter to make sure the threshold for continuing the case was met with the CPS, or they may have acted in a way where they were quite comfortable for the case to collapse because they want to kowtow to Beijing rather than incur their wrath, as they would see it, given the fragility of the economy at the moment and the fact that they are desperate to benefit from China in terms of trade and other matters. So a lot of questions still to be answered. And what we're saying, Mike, is that what they've got to do now is they've released the evidence, the three submissions around that, but they've also got to release the correspondence and the memos around the interaction between the CPS and civil servants and any ministers involved in those discussions, so we can get to the bottom of exactly what happened and why they failed to provide the evidence required for those trials to go ahead.
And is it really credible for Matthew Collins, who is the Deputy National Security Advisor and a civil servant not appointed by the government, is it really credible that he, in his statement, has said basically that he operated entirely alone without any reference to his boss, who is, of course, the National Security Advisor, who is Jonathan Powell, and without any reference at all to Downing Street, without any reference to any, media advisors, without any reference to anyone, he just dealt with the CPS on his own. I mean, I just don't believe it.
Well, it just does stretch credulity that the National Security Advisor, who of course is a political appointee, and that is a distinction, should have been completely unaware of what was going on. And if he was aware of what was going on, then why wasn't he involved more than is claimed? Or indeed, was he more involved? And that's why, as I say, we need to see the correspondence, the memos around those interactions between the CPS and the Matt Collins, the Deputy National Security Director, that civil servant that you've referred to, and any other ministers that are involved in any way in this situation, because it just feels like there's stuff that's being hidden here. You've got a Prime Minister that one minute was saying, well, we couldn't see the evidence, and then the next minute he's up at the dispatch box saying we can because of the pressure that we've applied.
Right.
To him. It's moving around a bit, and it just raises more questions.
Well, it does. And I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you this morning was that we discovered yesterday what's wrong with Keir Starmer. We sort of fell upon it by accident, but because he does tell so many lies, and he seems to be unaware of the fact that we remember what he said before, right? And we found out that there's a thing called mythomania, which apparently is a psychological condition characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. And we can see that the various kind of symptoms of that are compulsive lying, telling elaborate stories, a lack of a clear motive, and difficulty distinguishing lies. I think he might be suffering from this condition, because he seems to be unaware of the fact that every single time he opens his mouth, he doesn't tell the truth.
I think the biggest thing, Mike, is a lack of backbone, actually. In this situation, if you think about the Angela Rayner situation where she had to resign, you looked at Peter Mandelson, his resignation, you've seen the same pattern, which is somebody who doesn't step in and grip these things. He lets them run, and it's down to others then to apply so much pressure that in the end he steps back and caves in, and that's just, I'm afraid, not a very good quality in somebody who's meant to be leading our country.
Well, it really isn't. It's quite disturbing. Mel, good to see you. Thank you.